Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tell. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerers Guild. Today on Magical Theory and Unorthodox Weirdery, we are going to be talking about Fate and Doom as I promised in the last episode, but I'm going to try to focus more on the crossroads because that is more the how-to area of all of this, yeah? And that's what we're after, right? This is a channel on how to practice sorcery. Okay, so let's get Fate and Doom out of the way. What is Fate and Doom? Okay, so we've talked about, in order to talk about Fate or Doom, we of course have to talk about free will. We mentioned that a little bit in the previous episode with when we was talking about the weird, how the conflux between fate and free will is where the weird takes place. And that's what we actually do, right? And that's what actually happens, what comes to pass in a situation. So what is fate? Fate is the predestined. Fate is that is most likely to happen given the set scenario. Yeah? Right? So that means fate isn't set. Fate is what is, if you want to put it this way, that's what's in the prophecy of the moment. Yeah? Fate is the prophecy of the moment. While free will is what we really desire. It's like while I was trying to film this episode, I messed up a couple times and said something different than I wanted to say, even though I had planned out in my head exactly what I wanted to do. Okay, the pre-plan in my mind of what I wanted to do, of what I had decided I was going to do, that is the free will. Fate is anything outside that was distracting me, the way my brain works that makes it hard for me to remember exactly what it is that I had planned a few moments before, all intervened upon my free will. And the weird is what actually came out and caused me to have to do another take of the video. Like, for example, me bumping into that. That certainly wasn't planned. I wasn't supposed to bump into that back there at that moment. But we're just going to keep rolling. So, anyways, that's fate. Fate is those things that is a situation you are put into. Free will is your plan going into that moment. And the weird is how that actually plays out in the end. Right? So what is doom then? I mentioned doom. Okay, doom isn't, oh man, you're doomed. Yeah, that's modern English. When these terms we're talking about are Old English, the words that we're using, so they don't have quite the same connotation. Yeah? Doom is not you're doomed. Something bad. Doom isn't always bad. Doom is those few things in your life that are anchor points. Like, these are things that are going to happen at some point. What these aren't always easy to tell. In fact, it's hard to give an example of what exactly a doom is. But we have certain aspects of our existence, of our fate, that are just more set in stone than others. This thing, the odds of this happening are 99.99%. Okay? That's your doom. Unless you do something extreme to get out of that. And these are usually things that are having to do with our nature. Things with what we are in our core being. That are just set. That's our doom. Perhaps it was my doom to be a sorcerer. Yeah? I can do whatever I want with that. But no matter what happened in life, I was going to wind up practicing magic. That's my doom. Yeah? Okay. So, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get on to this idea of the crossroads. Now, I've mentioned the crossroads before in the previous episode when I said that the weird was 3 paths set with 3 crossroads. One for the material plane, one for the astral plane, and one for the mental plane. Okay, so what are these crossroads then? They are the in-between points. It is part of this moment. You could look at it like I said, where fate and free will collide. So the weird is involved in the crossroads, and that's why we're sticking with this. That's why this is on the Unorthodox Wordery playlist as well as the Magical Theory playlist, is because this weird is still in the crossroads. That's the center of the crossroads. With the when we're speaking symbolically, but as we know, symbolism and metaphor have power in sorcery. So, what is this? This is the in-between places, the in-between times. A crossroad is a place between where you started and where you are going. It is not a destination, but a place upon your path. And so we take this as a metaphor. And we are able to go to these in-between places by going to crossroads. Yeah? And there's more than one crossroads. We talk about crossroads in cemeteries, the crossroads at downtown. These are places where you can't often perform your magic on the crossroads. If you can perform magic there, that's great. But this is the place where we leave offerings, where we, like, one of the most common uses for an actual crossroads, which is what we're going to be talking about now, is a literal place where two roads cross. Yeah, there are trails out in the woods that are crossroads. I have a place out in the woods specifically that I call the crossroads, where two trails meet. Hardly anyone ever goes there, but it's still two trails crossing. So we've had that metaphor, that symbolism of the in-between place, that moment in the veil. Yeah, like I said, the crossroads are the places between. Okay, so the crossroad isn't actually in the material plane, the physical plane, or the astral plane. The crossroads is those areas where those planes meet. And so we take that symbolically, and we go to a crossroad, and we are in an in-between place. We're going to get more into that in just a moment, but let's talk more about the actual crossroads. So, how to? At these crossroads, this is a place to either petition or leave offerings when we're talking about simply a crossroads of streets. When you want to start working with a being, especially a being that is existing within the veil, the energetic equivalent of the material plane, the rift or veil, as I have discussed in previous episodes. I'll leave a link here for that. Especially when you're dealing with beings that exist there. So that's fey beings, the dead there's of course a special realm for death, but there's also fey beings exist within the veil. The jinn, many different beings. If you are wanting to contact one of these beings, you can actually write a letter and leave it at a crossroads. You want to, of course, leave it somewhere where nobody's going to find it. Maybe take it there and burn the letter. And this is a form of introduction. If you're having no other way to contact a certain type of spirit, you could write a letter and take it to the crossroads. Now, keep in mind, these are lower realm spirits, okay? This isn't going to work so good for contacting demons or angels. I mean, it kind of does, because you're still in between. And that's closer to the astral realm where such beings exist. But we are looking for things that are in the in-between, typically. And they're the things that are most going to get their attention. Tricksters are in-between beings. Tricksters that dwell at the crossroads. And we will get into that. But these physical crossroads, we can use these for initiation points. We can use these for places when we simply want to speak. Go to the crossroads and speak your piece to the being that you wish to communicate with, and she or they are more likely to hear you at the crossroads. What else is the crossroads good for? This is a place to bury spell components. This is a good place to leave offerings. If you're leaving an offering for the dead, it is best to have a crossroads that is in a cemetery, not one that is simply down the street. And I'm not suggesting we go litter at these places, yeah? These are flowers. We leave flowers at crossroads for spirits. And this can be done for astral beings as well, because it's an in-between for them too. Yeah? When you promise a goddess flowers, roses, like you might for Isis, when you are done with the flowers on your altar, a crossroads is a good place to take them. It's a good place to leave cakes for spirits, things like that. So, this is the place that we begin, and that we can use as a place to begin contact with a spirit, and is also a place to leave offerings when we're talking about a physical crossroads. Do keep in mind any littering laws. You don't want this stuff to just swept up and thrown away by the city workers or stolen by people walking by. So keep that in mind, because that can put them people in danger, possibly, depending on who it is you left this thing for, if someone takes it from them. So, that's the literal crossroads. Now, I mentioned this in between places. Almost every version of magic has some idea of this going in between. Okay? And physical crossroads isn't the only manifestation of this. We hear about the bridging the abyss. We hear about ideas of like having one foot in both worlds. All these times, what we are doing is we are going to that in-between. That place in between that is neither the physical nor the astral. We're stepping into the veil. And that is where magic dwells, is in that in-between. That is also why sunrises or sunsets are powerful times. And these are in-between moments. So not just in-between places, like a crossroads. There is also, like I said, bridges, but there are also in-between times. Most commonly, sunset and sunrise. Midnight is one that's spoken of often, because it's the middle of the night. Yeah, it's an in-between. What people seem to neglect in this is noon. There are actually some very special connotations derived from noon. Now, one thing I want understood in this is when I speak of noon or midnight, we shouldn't be taking these as literally 12 o'clock a.m., 12 o'clock p.m. in your time zone. Okay? I'm talking about that moment where the sun is at its highest in the sky. This is different than what your clock says. So I don't literally mean noon. I mean that moment when the sun is at its highest point in the sky for the day. Or the opposite, at night, of course, when the moon is at its zenith for the night. And these are less in between times, but there is always something. In every form of magic, there is a reaching out to this. If you don't have the moon or witching hour, as some people like to call it, that's more superstition, I think, than anything real. But there is a special power to casting spells at midnight. There is also the beach, yeah, where the land meets water. These are in between places as well. So when I'm speaking of a crossroads, the most powerful metaphor in a lot of traditions is the literal crossing of roads. And that is great. But we can go to these places at sunrise or sunset and increase that as well. Or I suppose, like I said, if you're dealing with the dead, you want to find a crossroads within the cemetery to be doing these things. If you can't find one when you're working with the dead, you're better off going to the cemetery than just a random crossroads. But if for some reason that's not possible, we do have these crossroads that we can go to for that. There is also shores, like I said, where land meets water. And I feel like I'm rambling a bit here, so let's get off of that part and onto the next. This idea of tricksters. Yes, And the devil of the crossroads. Well, like many beings, spirits behave how they are treated to a lot of degrees. Now, if you go to the crossroads seeking a devil, you're going to find one. The truth is that many of these beings that dwell at the crossroads, there are beings that specifically dwell at these crossroads, such as Eshu, Legba, Elegwa. What people don't often think of is Pan. There are many beings that are similar in origin that all have some kind of dealing with this crossroads in some way or another. And these beings are not necessarily devils. What it is they are beings that are independent and self-willed. They have their own desires, their own purposes. And if you come up disrespecting them, calling them devils, well, maybe they will take your soul. Yeah? But if you come to them as friend, as you come to them as client even, a business partner, that is better than to come to them with cruelty or distrust. This is an area where rapport is extremely important, is when dealing with the beings of the crossroads. Treat them well. Do not disrespect these beings, and they will treat you well. And always make payment. If you work with these beings, yeah, if they ask for a shot of rum, make with the shot of rum. And on that note, anytime that beings are asking for rum, at least in my experience, they mean Everclear, okay? They want that strong stuff. They want powerful rum, like when rum first was created. Yeah, not this 90 proof stuff we got now. At least get the 180 proof. Or, yeah, 151. That's that Bacardi 151. The stronger the proof, the higher it seems. Okay. So, this episode has gone quite a bit longer than expected. So, I think that's going to be it for now. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. And don't forget to join us next time. Until then, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.